Oh, I remember there was a big lag last time. She told me that maybe I could just put a post-it note over my face because it was distracting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Okay. 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 I did have a question, so I just wanted to recap. I'm sorry, I may have missed it. So I see the question down at the bottom. When I want to answer the question, do I click answer or no? Oh, that's a type. Oh, okay. I didn't know whether or not that was just something that moved it to the answered questions queue or something like that. No. So okay, so I don't click anything when I'm answering questions. I'll just restate. Okay. I think that's it. Okay, great. All right. Thank you. Bye bye. Stand by. Okay. If I should stay up or if I should just stay back. That makes it look a little not good. Oh, my hair is looking a little. Uh-uh. Should I just bring the hair forward? Mm-hmm. I think I'm gonna leave the hair back. I'll do that. Thank you, Miss Production Rep, for telling me the time. 10 minutes. Okay. Make sure I'm looking in the proper place. I'm going to cover my face. I'm looking in the proper place. Hello, everybody. So producers, can the people who are in the audience, can they see or hear anything yet? Or are they on a dark screen? Never mind. No, I have not muted the sound on my computer. Hopefully you're just kidding. The sound is way up. Can you hear me? I have not muted the sound on my computer. Can you hear me at all? Oh, I guess I should. You cannot hear me. Okay, I'm going to go to the computer settings. Okay. You can? Okay. You made me nervous. Okay, so I don't need to make any adjustments, right? I'll assume that you can hear me now. Okay. So the question is, the people in the audience cannot see or hear anything yet. Is that correct? Okay, thanks. Okay, great. Alrighty. Stand by. All right, I'm just trying to test the best place to look. Sometimes it's hard for me to look right into the light, which is right beside the camera. So I'm looking at the question mark. Since there's a delay, I can see that that's a good place to look. Okay. No feedback necessary. Thank you. I'm going to cover my face with the Post-it. Oh, I guess I don't look relaxed. I'll relax. 'Cause I can take my shoes off. The audience members won't see. Ooh, my feet are much more relaxed. Two minutes. 2 minutes till you fresh your. Hello, everyone. My name is Sia Knight, and I'm so pleased to be bringing you the presentation, How to Present Yourself to Colleges, Creating a Great Impression. So before I get started, I just want to share a little bit about myself. My name, as I mentioned before, is Sia Knight. I am the College Savvy Coach, and I can be found numerous places around the web. So I have a website, siaknight.com. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook, Stitcher. You can send up a smoke signal and find me. And I wanted to start off that way, not just as a shameless plug, even though after this presentation's over, I would love for you to visit me on one or more of these platforms, but also I wanted to start as an example of branding and how to create your brand. I will talk a little bit about that during this presentation, but as you can see, my branding is pretty consistent. And I want to, first of all, before I get started into the meat of things, thank College Week Live again for asking me to present this material. I love spreading the word about college admissions, especially what to do to increase your chances to get accepted into college. And as the College Savvy Coach, I talk to lots of college admissions reps. And they give me some inside info that I am not stingy about sharing. And that's how this presentation was born. I wanted to share with families how to increase, as I mentioned before, your chances of getting into college. Yes, it's about grades, of course. Yes, test scores usually play a part, activities, but there's some other factors that sometimes people don't realize play a part. Before I get started, I want to mention that if you have any questions for me, you can ask them in the question box during the presentation. And if I remember to look, I will take a look and try to answer as many of them as possible. But let's get started. Let's get started. The objective. What do I hope to accomplish during this session? I want to give you specific strategies that will make you a more attractive candidate for college admission. So that's my goal. I want to give you specific action steps, things that you can do that will help increase your chances to get into college. Let's begin. So when I say how to present yourself to colleges, it's not just what you send to them online. It's not just your visits. It's not just how you talk to them on the telephone. It's a combination of things. So let's first start with presenting yourself online. Presenting yourself online. And I'm going to say I'm disappointed that I have to keep making this particular point over and over again. And the first point is about email addresses. And when I work with students and in any number of situations, and I get their email address and their email is questionable, I just have to put it out there. I say to myself, you really gave that email address to an adult? And that's really not cool. And it's interesting nowadays, in the last couple of years, less and less students have been using email. You know, students will tell me, well, I don't check my email. So, it's an old email account. So hot mama, 99 or whatever. And you know what? You might want to update that. So make sure that you have a professional email address, a professional email address. You want to be taken seriously. And the question is, who would you be more apt to offer a spot in the freshman class? Alana or Honey Boo Boo? So if it's Honey Boo Boo, recognize@gmail.com, maybe you're not being taken very seriously. And Also, keep in mind that these nebulous or cute or inside email addresses, you want admissions counselors to not have to figure out who you are. So, for example, here's my suggestion. Set up a free account. Okay, there's even Ymail now. I think Yahoo ran short or ran out of email addresses, so now they had something called Ymail. So set up a free account specifically dedicated to the college admissions process. And so I would suggest, so my name is Sia Knight, okay, as I mentioned before. So it might be siaknightcollege@gmail.com. And that would be the email address I give to all of the college reps. So if I'm not a senior, but I'm a underclassman, and I want all of my college information to go to the same place, I might put that as my email address. I might also keep a personal email address for other things, but I would suggest having a professional email address. First name dot last name often works as well. Now, if your name is John Smith, if it's not taken, john.smith@gmail would be great. Johnny Boy Smitty Guy, maybe not the best email choice. And I mention this because, as I said before, not only do students have to submit their email addresses to me, but I have, again, behind closed doors, talked to some college reps, and they may not ever tell you that they pay attention to those things, but they do. I'm here to tell you the inside scoop. They do pay attention to those things. In fact, I often hesitate to tell this story, but a few years ago, there was a rep at a particular school that was reading an application, and the email address was one hot guy at AOL. So this was a long time ago. To say it was AOL.com. And the rep took the paper and said, "Not at this institution, you're not." And tossed it. Now, you may be horrified. You may not believe the story. Like, I can't believe you can't disqualify someone because of that. Chances are probably not. But if you're on the bubble, what I tell students is you do not want to give admissions representatives, people on scholarship committees, anyone reason to doubt your seriousness or to question your qualifications based on what could be some bad judgment. Okay, so I would say, even though that's not fair, Miss Knight, that's not cool. Sorry, I'm just relaying the story as it was relayed to me in confidence. So I just wanted to mention that. So I want you to think about, what is your email address? What is your email address? And have you set up a separate professional account? Again, if you don't want to wait until your senior year in college, go ahead and do it now. 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. Go ahead and set up that email address so that you can get all of your school-related, college-related information there. As I mentioned before, one reason I shared all of my contact information, even though I don't know if my email address was there, but my email address is collegesavvycoach@gmail.com. So if you know that I'm the College Savvy Coach, there's not a lot of guesswork in who I am and where to find me. All right, let's move on. Again, presenting yourself online. Okay, we've talked about email addresses. Let's talk about you as a brand. And you should think of yourself as a brand. Okay, so what's a brand? A brand is something that you associate with something else to make it distinctive. So the swoosh sign, okay, is part of Nike's brand. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about how you can go from having a good brand to having a negative one. Okay, So, am I saying that you all are taking steroids or saying questionable things behind closed doors? No. But I do want you to know that what you say, how you say things, and how you're perceived does have an effect on sometimes your college admissions chances. And it's hard for me to kind of reveal this information because a lot of people want to know the formula on how to get into college. I want to know the quantitative XYZ 1, 2, 3. How am I going to get into college? And we know it's a combination of grades and of test scores. But again, these are the factors that colleges may not tell you about. So why am I talking about these celebrities and folks who got in trouble? I want you to think about yourself as a brand. Okay? I want you to think about associations with this brand. I want you to think about what's out there on the net. I know that sounds old. What's out there online about you? Okay? Think about your Twitter name. Okay? Think about your Facebook site. Think about Instagram and the pictures you posted, but you're like, oh, well, I'll take those down. Think about that because I have a close family member who would be horrified if she knew I were using her as an example, but I will. I have a close family member that I found out what her Twitter name was, and I questioned her about it because this is a young lady who's a wonderful young lady. She's getting ready to graduate from school. I'll just put it that way. A graduate school, in fact. And I said, what about this Twitter name? Do you think you might want to? Oh, I'll delete it. Deleting means nothing in this day and age. So I want you to think about trying to clean up your profile, but one thing you need to know is that some images and some things never go away. So let me use this as a good example. Okay, this is a picture that was taken in 1992. Okay, I am in this picture. I don't know if I want to tell you which person I am with a very colorful shirt, but I'm in this picture. And luckily for me, I was a pretty straight and narrow kid. I didn't do lots of stuff. I led a very, very boring teenage and young adult life. That's fine. And someone found this picture from back in the day and put it up on Facebook. So I have grown up. I'm pretty old now, and I've got a life, I've got a career. But let's think about if this picture had something else. What if I was a partier back in the day? What if there was a picture of me with some questionable beverage or some questionable substance? That would not be something that I would want out in the world. So just think, if someone can take an image that's over 20 years old and post it, just think about people now with their cell phones, with their iPads, with all sorts of devices who are taking pictures, who are recording things all the time. You have to be very, very careful about what's out there about you. And in fact, make sure that you're not posting anything questionable because these things come back to bite you. They can come back to bite you. In fact, one college rep told me that a student friended him on Facebook or attempted to friend him on Facebook, met him at a college fair and didn't have his school or college Facebook profile, but tried to personally friend him. And I don't think he accepted the friend request from the student, but what he did do was he did go through the student's profile, looked at the pictures, looked at who the student's friends were, and the student's profile was wide open. And I think he took note of that student and some of the things that he saw. So I just want you to kind of be very, very careful about that because these things do matter. Okay, so let's talk about presenting yourself online on the actual application. And the actual application. So let's talk about supplementary materials like the essay. Be very careful about the college essay. The best way to put your foot forward on the essay is to add to your overall application, not to just rehash what they could have read on your application. They are looking for something to complete the picture of who you are, not to just kind of, not to just rehash what they could have seen in other paperwork. So be very careful about that. That's one thing that the college reps tell me all the time. It's like, oh, the essay was just not good. It was just generic. It was kind of basic. It didn't answer the question, which is also a very big stop sign. So just be very careful about the way you present yourself online when it comes to your college essay. And for the name, in the name of heaven, please make sure that you are writing your essay, because also I hear stories about students who have a portrait presented of themselves through their grades, through their extracurricular, and the essay just doesn't fit. So make sure you're putting your best foot forward. And in the name of heaven, please write your own essay. Okay, so let's go on to the next thing. Presenting yourself on the phone. Presenting yourself on the phone. How is this going to help you when it comes to college admission? College admissions reps pay attention to who calls, how they behave on the phone, and whether or not the questions are appropriate. For instance, if you have a question about your college application or the process or a piece of paperwork, it's best that you call the university yourself. If your parents call, if your school counselor calls, they make note of that. They definitely make note of whether or not you are calling every day when they told you, well, in 4 days we should have some more information about this. If you are semi-stalking them, they make note of that as well. So if you want to put your best foot forward over the phone, make sure you call. You are not rambling when you call the college admissions rep. And also make sure you're speaking clearly and you're articulating yourself the best way possible. College reps, their job is tough, because what they try to do is they try to pick out students who will be successful on their college campuses, right? So if you call and you are talking in an incoherent way and can't really get your point across, even if your message is a valid one, even if your grades are good, they might have some questions or concerns about you and your ability to move through the college campus. So be very careful about the way you present yourself over the phone. Moving on. Here's one of my favorites. Presenting yourself on campus. Presenting yourself on campus. So one thing that I talk about a lot is being careful about what you wear on a college campus, on a college tour. Okay, so let's talk about two different situations. On a college tour, even though you might be going with a group, you may be going with your parents, you may be going with someone else's parents and you're tagging along. When you go on a college tour on a college campus, please know that you might have the opportunity to meet the person who's going to read your application. And so, consequently, it may be your opportunity to make a good impression on that person. So, here's the thing that sometimes people will disagree with me on. One of the things I say that you need to step it up a little bit when you're visiting a college campus. I advise students that I work with no jeans, no tennis shoes, and nothing that you would wear to a club situation. But on the other hand, you don't have to wear a three-piece suit either. Again, from my point of view and from what the college reps tell me, look like you tried. Look like you didn't just roll out of bed in the morning and say, oh, I think I'm going to go on the campus of Georgetown today. Don't do that, because you never know who you could meet. Many times those admissions reps are the ones who are giving the orientation sessions before the students are giving you that tour. So, that again, that's a bit controversial. Some people would say you must wear tennis shoes on a college tour because your feet will be hurting. Now, I'm not saying wear a pair of stilettos, and I'm not saying wear combat boots. Wear comfortable shoes. But from my perspective, a student that looks like they took the time to step it up a bit, again, you give that admissions rep opportunity to say, not, okay, so that's what you want in the process. I know it's very scientific. But on the other hand, let's talk about on an interview. On an interview, you do need to step it up 2 or 3 notches. In fact, young men, I would say a shirt and tie if you are going on a college interview. And young ladies, I would say some type of business attire. Okay, so again, you are trying to dress to impress. Now, you might say, well, Miss Knight, this is me. They can take me or leave me. This is me. This is how I roll. Okay, that's fine. You may just have to roll to another campus, and that you can make that agreement. But you just have to be careful about the way you present yourself. Okay? You want people to remember you for something positive, not for something questionable. Okay? Also, think about this. When you are on campus, please be attentive. Don't look disinterested. Don't look bored. Ask great questions, because more than anything else, when we have groups of students that go on the college campus, when someone asks a great question, that makes a rep sit up and notice more than anything else. So they will know that you've done your homework about the school. They know that you are a serious candidate, that you are very interested in becoming a student there. So, I was a chaperone on a trip that a major university put on. They put lots of time and resources into this particular trip. And I had a student who came up to me and said, well, Miss Knight, I'm going to skip out on this session and I'm going to meet my friend. And I said, well, I don't know if that's the best idea. You can kind of do what you want to, but just think about that. If a university puts a lot of time, effort, and resources in pulling people together to put on a presentation for you, yeah, it's almost a slap in the face kind of for you to say, well, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and opt out of this. This is not important to me. So the student actually ended up staying for the presentation, which I thought was a good move, because ultimately she got into the university. Now, was it because she stayed for the presentation? Maybe not, but it didn't hurt. Okay? All right. And also, I said be gracious to your host, because people take time out of their schedules to be able to show you around, to give you the information about the university. It's a two-way street, because they want to recruit quality students, but make sure that you're not, make sure that you show your appreciation for the time and effort that's gone into this. All right. Presenting yourself in person. So let's say you get the opportunity to meet a college rep in person. Okay, so let's take an example, a big college fair. Okay. Now, some college fairs have the opportunity that nowadays everything's so fancy. You can kind of scan in your information. You have a barcode, they zap you, they have your information, and then they are emailing you or sending you pieces of mail because they know you're a student that's interested. But what if you don't know if that's the case and you're going to a huge college fair? One thing that you may want to do, and that makes you look like a really prepared student, someone who's on top of things, is to take labels with your name and address already pre-printed. Because you know what, the whole filling out the mailing list, that's so old school. That's so 20th century. So right now what you would do is you would either have the labels, or many times the schools will have an opportunity for you to submit that electronically. But again, I would call the fair ahead of time to find out if they have some type of electronic way to capture student information. If no, then maybe labels are a way that you can impress the rep, and often they're sending the reps who are reading applications from that area. So if you get the chance to see or to talk to someone at a fair, don't blow it off. Okay? And at your school, sometimes college reps will come to your high school to visit. And as I mentioned before, many times these are the folks that are associated with reading the files from that particular school. So you want to go to those presentations if possible. You want to ask great questions. You want to make a great impression so that that rep can say, gosh, I visited XYZ school and I remember Skippy. He had some great questions. So, in the spring, when it's time to read Skippy's application, that rep may remember, or the rep may write down some information about Skippy as well. So let me talk about demonstrated interest. What in the world is that, Miss Nye? What are you talking about? Demonstrated interest is exactly what I just finished talking about, where if you go on campus, if you have a rep that comes to your school, if you call the school, all of that fits under the category of demonstrated interest. And some colleges want to know how interested you are in going to that school, so they may track it. If you have a dream school that you just can't wait to get into, and I want to go to this school, one thing you can do to help increase your chances of getting into that school is calling that school and finding out whether or not they track demonstrated interest. So if they do, find out what that means to that school. It could mean every time you call, they keep track of it. Every time you visit campus, they keep track of it. Every time you talk to a rep at a fair, keep track of it. Some schools, it's very important because when they offer admission to you, they want to be almost assured that you would accept that offer of admission. So that's why demonstrated interest is very important to some schools. So keep that in mind. And if you have a dream school, or if you have a couple of schools that you're very, very interested in, ask them whether or not they track demonstrated interest. And then go about demonstrating interest. But I would say fall short of stalking them. Not good form of demonstrated interest is to find out the personal counselor's phone number, or I'm going to friend them personally on Facebook. Let's say not a good use of demonstrated interest. Okay, so I think I'm ready to summarize. And before I do that, let me make sure that I let everyone know, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the question box, because I'm going to be summarizing very soon and closing out the presentation. So if you have any questions, type them in and I will do my best to answer those questions for you. Okay. Let's talk about the bottom line. The bottom line. How do you impress college reps? What's the bottom line? How can you get a slight edge in the college admissions process? Okay. The bottom line is you want to be considered a serious student, and you don't want to do anything that will jeopardize that view of you, or someone to be able to doubt or question your ability based on something that they've seen about you. Now, should we judge a book by its cover? No, we shouldn't. That's unfair. That's terrible. That's ridiculous. Why would someone judge someone else based on what they've seen? Do people do it all the time? So you don't want to get caught up in that. And if you think about this, college admissions reps, they don't know you. They don't know you at all. Okay. So, you want to present to college reps something that is representative of your best you. Okay. Not, hey, don't pay attention to that part. Just pay attention to this. Make sure you're just presenting your best self. Okay. So that's the bottom line. Now, I'm going to put my ending slide up, but I'm going to stay on the line to answer questions. I'm going to answer some questions, and I see I have some that have come rolling in. And the first question I have here is, I am a very hardworking student and performed at the 800 level on subject tests and AP tests, but SAT and ACT scores not so hot. Okay. The question is, how do I present myself to prestigious universities so they pay attention to everything else? Now, here's what I want to say to you. And I'm a straight shooter. Nothing will take the place of your grades and your test scores. Nothing will take the place of those things. But if you are on the bubble, I would call it, if you're close, other factors may supplement your academic profile. Okay, so I would say that one mistake that students make is that they wait until junior and senior year to participate in extracurricular activities, and they said, okay, this is going to help me get into college, so I'm going to join 7 clubs as a junior, and I'm going to add 2 more as a senior, and I'm going to join 9 clubs. That's not going to help you. Colleges can see right through that. That's a really, really easy thing for universities to kind of to see through. But what I would say is that, unfortunately, some of the most competitive schools weigh very heavily grades and test scores. And it just depends. If you don't have any other really compelling distinguishing factor, okay, so like for instance, you are the #1 cellist in your state. Now that's a compelling factor that might help to supplement your profile at some of the most prestigious universities. But chances are working on those SAT or ACT scores would be the best way. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. So if you have, okay, I see some more questions here, and if you have questions about this topic or any other college admissions topic, please chime in. Okay, let's see. Here's an interesting question. How can you talk to a rep for a college of your dreams without being nervous? I love that question. Whoever asked that question, mwah, I love it. It is natural to be nervous around someone when you feel that person has a high ability to control an important aspect of your future. So here's what I would suggest. I would suggest practicing. Practicing. Even though it might be just a meeting in your school's counseling center, or if that rep is coming to visit, or if you're going to a college fair and you say, oh my goodness, XYZ is going to be at that college fair. If I meet a rep from XYZ, I'm going to know I'm just going to really be nervous. Role play. Practice. Write down great questions, because what will happen is it will make you feel more comfortable when you are around XYZ's rep, because you will have gone through that process a little bit before. So that's what I would suggest. Practice, practice, practice. So hopefully that's helpful to you, because it can be nerve-wracking, especially when you feel like that person has such a control almost in what you see as your future. So that's what I would suggest. Okay, here is a general question. Okay, all right, which is better, the ACT or the SAT? What do colleges want to see? All right, that's an interesting question. ACT versus SAT. So let's go back a little ways. The SAT used to be the only ball game in town, especially on the East Coast. ACT used to be more prevalent in the Midwest. But what I found now, when I talk to reps and when I talk to folks about, well, which one do you prefer, they say, we don't have a preference. We prefer the test that the student performs the best on. So again, it's to the university's advantage to take your highest score if it's the SAT or if it's the ACT. Most schools do not have a preference, and most schools will accept either or. So that's what I would say. The SAT is very interesting because there are tools and tips that you can use to help to increase your score. So that's one reason why people might trend towards the SAT, and also historically the SAT had been king of the college admissions testing. But the ACT seems to be, for many people, more straightforward. There is, even though the level of math is higher on the ACT, it seems to be a test that measures what you know a little bit better than the SAT. So it just depends. My advice, take both. Take both as a baseline and see how you perform. Okay. So, okay, here's another question. Okay. And this question is also about the SAT. The question is, when should I take the SAT 1? When should I take the SAT subject test? All right, this is a great question. This is a great question because I just talked to a parent who was having a little bit of remorse because he has a high school senior who is going to apply early to a university. That university highly recommends that students have the SAT 2 subject tests. The student hadn't taken the subject test, and the first SAT administration of the year is October. So if the student takes the test in October, there's a chance that the scores won't get back before the November 1 deadline. So you have to be careful about things like that. You have to be careful about things like that. So my recommendation is that students take the SAT for the first time during junior year. So I recommend students take the SAT in March, and I'm just talking SAT. I'm not going to really speak to timelines on the ACTs. We'll talk SAT. I would say take the SAT 1 for the first time in March, and then take your subject test in May. That way you can see where you are. If you need some practice, if you need some assistance, if you need to try to shore up your grades, your scores, you can do something over the summer that will help to raise those scores. And then you can take it, if you have to, October or at the latest, November of your senior year. So that's my recommendation to students that I work with. Okay. So, all right. So here's another question. It says, should you send automatically SAT or ACT scores every time you take the test, or should you wait and send your preference? So that's the question. Should you hold back? Do universities frown upon you if you had a particularly poor testing time? And or I think the person's asking, should I see which test I did better on and then wait and then send the scores? Here's what I say. You get I believe it's 3 free sends. Okay. Send your scores. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to, I'm not a big believer of the score choice and you pick and choose from different administrations and different tests, and I can send my verbal from this time and my math from this time. Again, universities are going to, most of the time, take your highest score. Okay? They're going to take your highest score. They are going to do what benefits you the most. Okay, so I'm not a big fan of trying to play those games of I'm going to use score choice. I want to send this one this time. No, just send all your scores. And also, I'm not a big fan of taking the test a lot. I mentioned if you take the SAT 1 in March of your junior year, take the SAT 2 in May of your junior year, and then if you have to take it in October, then that's fine. Or let's say you're tired of the SAT. I'm going to try the ACT. You can do that in September. But I'm not a fan of, and then they're giving the SAT again in October, November, December. No, I'm not a fan of that. Your score is not going to change dramatically unless you do something, say you've taken a class or something like that. That might help. But taking it 4, 5, 6 times, it's a waste of money, quite frankly. Even though, the SAT people might say something a little different, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Okay? All right. Let me see if I see any more questions. All right. Ooh, here's one that's a little elaborate. Let's see if I can tackle this. What if the school requires a Math 2 subject test and the score is 800, but the other 2 subjects taken that day are in the low 600s? Okay, the question is, should the subjects be retaken? Will it hurt your chance of getting in since the other tests were low, but the Math 2 is perfect? So here's what I would say for that. Number 1, don't take that math again. Don't mess with that math again. If you get that perfect score, that's fine. It's going to be up to you whether or not you want to retake the other subjects. Take a look to see what the average is for that university in those subject tests. If it's not posted, if you can't find that somewhere, that's a good question to call and ask the college reps about. And in fact, I think this leads to a good point. College reps love to answer good questions. Don't be scared to call them. Don't be scared to call them. And if you're not sure whether or not this is a good question or not, I would say start with your school counselor. Your school counselor can let you know listen, they may know the answer to the question, or they can say, oh, that might be a good question to call the university about. So I would say, if I had to answer the question, I would say check with the university to see if the 600s, if that's right around the range that they're looking for those tests. So that's what I would do. Okay. Oh, here's the question. Oh, here's another good one. And let's see. I'm going to take a look at my time to see how I'm. More time than I thought. I only have about 15 minutes left. I think I only have a few questions. I've only taken the ACT, but I have a score that I like. Do I need to take the SAT in order to apply to colleges? The answer is probably not. You probably do not need to take the SAT. If you have a score that you like on the ACT, chances are you can roll with it. But I'm always going to kind of make this reference. Go to the colleges that you plan to apply to and see if it's one of the 2 colleges in the nation that's not taking the ACT, which again, I haven't even found 2. But I would say check with your dream schools, or even your kind of, I'm okay with those schools, to find out whether or not that ACT is okay. And in most cases, from doing this for several years, the ACT has been okay. So I would say check with the universities, but chances are, nah, just roll with the score that you have and keep getting excellent grades throughout senior year. That's a whole other presentation that I do about senior year and some of the slip-ups I've seen some students make. In fact, I think there's a blog post and a podcast that I did about that. It's called Senior Year Snafus, and I kind of infused some of the real live examples that I've had of seniors who have thought they were coasting, and one university asked me to send a student's, let's see, I think it's 3rd quarter interim grades. So not even on a real report card, but interim grades. And that student begged and pleaded, please, Miss Knight, don't send those grades. I'm like, I have to. I sent the grades. I talked to the college rep. They said, no, the student was on the bubble, but we can tell that he's sliding during 3rd quarter, and the student did not get in. But that's a whole different presentation, so I won't bore you with those details. Go to siaknight.com or listen to the College Savvy Radio on iTunes, and there are lots of interesting stories like that you can listen to. So someone asked, does attending open houses at colleges matter? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on whether or not that college tracks what's called demonstrated interest. To some schools, that's very important. Why? Because when you come to an open house, it shows that you are very interested in going to that school. And if they offer you admission, chances are that you will accept their offer and you will put down that money, that deposit to go to that school, and you'll pay tuition to go to that school. That's the game that college admissions reps have to play. They have to offer admission to great students, that people who that they know will be great students at their university. But also, if they offer you admission, they have to believe that you will accept admission to that university. So, does it matter? Sometimes it does. All right. Oh, here's a good question. Oh, I better hurry up. I'm running out of time. Do colleges look at weighted GPA or unweighted GPA? Okay. This person took a summer school course, and the school sent the transcript and added the course to her transcript, or his, I don't know, transcript, and it slightly increased the unweighted GPA, but lowered the weighted GPA. So the question is about grades and how are grades calculated, and how do schools view grades. So let me tell you this. Most colleges that I have dealt with, and most reps that I know, will tell me they recalculate grades. Bottom line, if you think about the number of school systems and school divisions around the country, and the number of different grading scales there are, and the different versions of what an A is versus what an A minus is and what's a B plus, most colleges will recalculate grades based on their system. And their system may vary. They may just recalculate your core subject grades, meaning 4 core, which is typically English, science, social studies, and math, and foreign language. So you may have gotten A's in chorus, grades 9 through 11, and that's what's boosting your GPA. But some colleges, in fact, I would say most colleges, when they recalculate your GPA, they strip away many electives. Okay, so I see that I have 10 minutes left, so let me see if I can get to any other questions. Okay, or am I done? I think I may be done. Okay, so here's the last question that I have right now is, can I submit SAT subjects tests along with ACT scores? That's an interesting question. The ACT has within it many different subjects. So like social studies is in the ACT where it's not in the SAT, and some science questions and that sort of thing. So can you submit SAT subject tests along with ACT scores? I think you can submit those, but again, I'm going to ask you to refer to your college or university that you're interested in. They will let you know for sure what combination they'll accept. So if I were to give you a rule of thumb, though, it's better to submit more test scores than you need, rather than not enough. Okay, so if you have that question and you can't get a hold of the college rep, which is hard to believe, but let's say you just don't want to talk to the college rep, you're nervous, I'd say send them. But it really depends on what their requirements are. Okay, I got one more question in. Do your chances to get into college increase if your senior grades increase? Let's talk about this. When you are applying to college, chances are you're applying around the time frame of, sometimes some applications, regular deadlines are January 1, sometimes February 1, sometimes February 15th. At that time, most people have only completed half of senior year. So what I tell students, especially the younger students, your money in the bank will be the classes that you've taken freshman, sophomore, and junior year. The senior year grades may help if you're on the bubble, but if you have a 1.0, okay, and then you knock it out the park your first semester of senior year, you get all A's. Well, they say, well, gosh, this person has turned it around. Chances are maybe not, probably not. It does help if you're on the bubble. Kind of, you're kind of in between, maybe yes, maybe no, and they're looking for a reason. They're looking for reasons to admit you. And I've been around the table when applications have been read, and that was the most striking thing for me. They're saying to themselves, and out loud, because it was an exercise so we could kind of get a feel for how applications were read. It's like, all right, Skippy, please give me something. What can you do to help me admit you? They're looking for reasons to admit you. So I would say you must keep up your grades during senior year, but can it compensate for really, really poor performance in years past? No. Might it help you if you're on the bubble? Yes. Okay. After you've been accepted, can they rescind your offer of admission because after you got into your dream university, you started acting the fool? Yes. Have I seen that happen? Yes. Even though students, for whatever reason, don't believe that actually happens, I have seen offers of admission rescinded. They said, you know what? Just kidding. We allowed you in early, typically of students who get in early, and then they say, whatever. I don't need a lot of, I'm already in. Why am I going to kill myself to get A's now? C's get degrees, right? No, don't do that. Don't do that because the colleges, the universities are watching. They are watching. So, as I wrap up, because I have about 5 minutes left, the one thing I want you to do, or the things that I want you to do, I want you to go to siaknight.com. I want you to go through the archives to read the articles that I've written about what to do to help you with the college admissions process. And I think they're archived by category, and that can be helpful. I want you to follow me on Twitter at siaknight, so I should see a spike of on people following me, and add to the millions of followers that well, not millions, but add to the hundreds, maybe thousands of followers that I have. Okay. And then I want you to like me on Facebook, and I want you to check out my podcast. You can get it for free on iTunes, and you can subscribe. Make sure you subscribe, or on Stitcher if you're kind of hip enough to know about Stitcher, if you know about the Stitcher game. So what I like to do is I like to thank everyone for joining me. And if you have any additional questions, there's a place on my website that you can ask. If you have a quick question, you can ask that question. It comes directly to me, and I'd be happy to answer that question because it's my goal to help people with the college admissions process. It shouldn't be a secret society. It shouldn't be something that's totally foreign to everyone. It shouldn't be something that's under a veil of secrecy, and my goal is to kind of pull back the curtain on the college admissions process. So I'd like to thank you once again for tuning in. Thank College Week Live for inviting me. And until next time, stay savvy. Thanks.